faced another tense night of protests with an increased threat to police and demonstrators. CMPD arrested 13 people and found 4 guns in possession illegally. One officer was attacked by protesters and has minor injuries. Late last night, CMPD Chief Kirputney responded to the violence against his officers, and he said, quote, "We are going to establish order after our officers have been assaulted. We have not been aggressive, and we are responding to aggression. We owe it to all members of this community to continue this heroic work, and we have done a fantastic job de-escalating situations, and I'm proud of our officers' work." The protest started around noon yesterday, and in the early evening, protesters started blocking traffic on I-277 in Uptown. Police were able to peacefully get people off of the interstate. Shortly after that, a powerful moment of hope. For some reason, a protester fell ill, and others came and prayed with him, and they also prayed for the police.
You touch their hearts right now in the name of Jesus.
In the name of Jesus.
I come to you with all of my ancestors, all of my grandmothers, all of my grandfathers, all of us before us, and I ask you to touch their hearts. I ask that you touch their minds. I ask that you give them a peace in their mind, God, that they understand that we are people like them.
Yes, Lord.
They go home and they go to their families, God, and I ask that you protect them.
Yes, Lord.
I ask that you cover them.
Cover them, Lord.
I ask that someone in their family touch them that have a sense of mind, God, if they already don't.
However, shortly after that, the situation deteriorated. People ran at police headquarters after officers used a chemical agent to try to break up the crowd. Over a loudspeaker, we heard police saying that they were responding to violence against them.
Individuals in the crowd continued to throw items at officers.
And we hear this?
For that reason, you are ordered to leave the area.
And more moments like this, police marching through the smoke, trying to gain some order and convince the protesters to peacefully go home. Well, still, first responders protected protesters from danger. We got this video on Trade Street around 11:30 last night. A protester fell into a sewer grate. Charlotte firefighters showed up to rescue that protester. CMPD reports a group of protesters threw rocks at those firefighters. We watched about 20 minutes later as rescuers took the protester away to get medical treatment. And through it all, many protesters have been working to police themselves. They are trying to stop others from using violence to destroy peaceful protests. And Channel 9's Ken Lemon caught evidence of that live before midnight when a man started throwing rocks at a building uptown.
Trying to shatter the windows of this building here. We're going to move to a safer position across the street.
And even though some acted aggressively, we found protesters who want to see this all play out peacefully.
I agree with them. You have a right to protest. But if you don't have an idea of what I'm protesting for, what I want, see, I'm protesting because this is what I want to see change. I'm protesting because I have specifics on what I want. There's no specifics on what they want. It's rage, and I understand it. I understand rage, but rage needs to be channeled.
There are more protests scheduled today. One is being planned at First Ward Park uptown by a group of churches. It is called It Ends Now, and they say people raise concerns wanting to know exactly who is organizing the event. The group posted more information hoping to be transparent. And that's an important question. Who's organizing the protests? Some wonder if people from outside Charlotte are busing people in to demonstrate. City leaders addressed those rumors, saying it doesn't really matter where the protesters are from.
So for inside-outside groups, it's really irrelevant. As long as they stay peaceful, we welcome any and all. All citizens have a guaranteed constitutional right to protest peacefully, to get the word out as to what changes they want effected. So whether they're from out of town or for here or for wherever, we support that.
Mayor Vile-Isles echoed that, but added, if protesters do come into this city, keep a few things in mind.
We do ask people that come into our city to remind themselves that we are trying to build great neighborhoods, and we're trying to make a city that has justice in it. We're trying to build a city that is creating opportunity. And if you would take any one of those values and honor it then you would not be organizing in a way to hurt or harm any of those efforts.
Police also want to make it clear they aren't against protesters. CPD even tweeted this photo saying, quote, "Sometimes you need the big picture to put it in perspective. If you look, you might miss us, and that's the point. We're right there beside you in this together." And take a look at this from Marshall Park yesterday. An officer standing in the middle of a protest, talking to everyone and answering their questions. He was there for several minutes before agreeing to lead them in a chant.
Humanity matters.
Humanity matters.
What did he say?
Humanity matters.
Say it again.
Humanity matters.
Be together in this. Let's go.
City and county leaders signed a state of emergency yesterday. Mayor Lyles said that she's praying and hoping that peace will win over violence. 3 CMPD officers were hurt Friday night. One of their stations and several of their vehicles were damaged. And police arrested 15 people Friday, including City Councilman Braxton Winston, for failing to disperse. He told us that he was originally at the demonstration with his kids, and when he saw the news that crowds were intensifying, he went back outside.
I saw everything that was going on, and you know, my son saw it, and he said, "Daddy, you got to go out there."
And people in Charlotte aren't the only North Carolinians who want their voices heard. Look at this massive protest yesterday in Raleigh. Other protests broke down into looting late last night in Fayetteville. And protesters also took to the streets last night in Charleston, damaging buildings. And police lined up to try to break up the crowds there. And video, you can see a few smoking canisters in the middle of the street. Protests continued across the country. The National Guard deployed to Los Angeles overnight when protests got out of hand there. Video shows looting during those protests. And Los Angeles and San Francisco both put curfews in place. Since Thursday, police arrested almost 1,400 people in 17 cities. It's very important to remember why people are protesting. They are enraged by the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And prosecutors charged former officer Derek Chauvin with murder after video showed him holding a knee to Floyd's neck for several minutes before his death. Volunteers have been trying to clean up a week's worth of protest damage in the Twin Cities. Buildings are burned down there. Stores are destroyed. And Minnesota's governor requested another 1,000 National Guard troops on top of the 500 already there. U.S. Attorney General William Barr urged people to stop and let the justice system do its work.
We must have law and order on our streets and in our communities, and it is the responsibility of the local and state leadership in the first instance to halt this violence.
Military police from Fort Bragg are on standby to go to Minneapolis if the situation gets worse. They and soldiers from Fort Drum in New York could deploy within 4 hours of being called. We are dedicated to bringing you live coverage, talking to the people protesting in Charlotte for justice. And when we're not on the air, you can get our recent reports anytime on the free WSOC TV News app. You can also sign up for breaking news alerts for any new developments.